It's September 11th, 1998. We're in Houston. My name's Slade McClendon, and I'm going to be interviewing Ken Lipstreuer.
Right.
From B Company of the 66th Area Infantry Battalion.
Armored Infantry Battalion, right.
If you could start just by just telling us a little bit about where you grew up, a little bit about your family, and where you came from.
Okay, I grew up actually in Cleveland, which is, Euclid is a suburb of Cleveland, and we moved to Euclid when I was 2 years old, I believe, and went to Euclid High School, Euclid Senior High School, and then took a job. I thought I was going to go to college, and then I postponed it. I graduated in 1940, incidentally, and so I was working, and I was also a member of the Sons of the American Legion. My wife was a member of the auxiliary, and we had a drum corps, and that's where I met my wife, my future wife, I should say. She was the drum majorette, and she was from Shore High School, which was our arch rival from Euclid at the time. But that's where we met, and we were dated off and on, and then got engaged in, I think it was October of 42. I wasn't drafted yet, and then I got my draft notice and went to the Army on March 3rd, 1943, and went into the 97th Infantry Division, which was being organized at the time, building up, starting to organize. They had all old sergeants and everything like that, cadre as they called it. So I ended up in a infantry, let's see, they have artillery too, but I ended up in the infantry, in a rifle platoon and squad. And then this ASTP came along, this Army Specialized Training Program. And I felt, hey, that's the way to go. Here I was, just a rifleman, that's all. So I interviewed with some captain there, and I remember the one question he asked me was, well, why do you want to go to school? And I said, well, wouldn't you, Captain? I said, here I am, just a rifleman. I've learned all there is about a rifle, and I see there's no future for me. So he said, yeah, that makes sense. So I got to go to, well, there's a STAR unit, as they call it, where they give you some more tests. I was down in Baton Rouge, LSU, which was the hottest town I ever heard of. And then I I found out one of the fellows had been there a while. Usually only stay about a week, but he was one of my roommates, and he said, hey, you're going to go to Lake Forest, Illinois. There's a college there, just above Chicago. And he said, it's a great place, a lot of gals and all that stuff, So I got sick for some reason. And I hadn't been drinking Saturday night, but Sunday morning I got sick. They took me to Harding Field, where there was a field hospital, a hospital there, and they thought I had spinal meningitis, but I had nothing wrong, really. So I went back in 4 days to LSU, and I had been substituted for another fellow took over, so I didn't go to Lake Charles, and I ended up in New Mexico School of Mines in Socorro, New Mexico, which was a town of about a couple of thousand, I think, and that's about all. Mostly Mexican and Spanish Americans, I guess, because they only showed English-speaking movies on Wednesday night at the theater there. But anyway, then I was doing all right, and all of a sudden the Army decided they need more troops, because I think they were getting ready, really for the invasion. And so in March, we only had 250 at the school, and we all moved out. And most of our school, I think the whole school, went to Camp Barkley, Texas, to join the 12th Armored. And they needed replacements because they had sent some to the 4th Armored Division, I believe. So they had to fill in a lot of people. And I fought like mad to get in the tank corps, the tank boys, and because I thought I'd rather ride in a tank than walk. And but my operation said I was a rifleman, so that's where I ended up with the B Company. And it was, I thought we had the best squad leader, Sergeant Grebel, And so I thought we were probably the best squad. And I think we were, actually. We were in the 1st platoon, 1st squad. In fact, the platoon sergeant, he was married and lived in town, but he did have a bunk in our squad room in our barracks when he was going to go out on a problem or something. So we got along pretty good. And I got a furlough. My future wife, my fiance, came down to visit me I think it was about April or so. And she said, let's get married down here. And I said, no. I said, let's wait. I'll get home and we'll have a church wedding. And she bet me, as I recall, $15 that I wouldn't get home. Well, I got home. I got home, and we had a real fast wedding. The American Legion at the time was having a carnival, and that's where most of our friends were anyway, besides our relatives. So we told everybody, there was no written invitations or anything. We just told everybody we're going to get married on Monday night and at the church, I told the church, and we had a good florist friend. He got the flowers, and the gals went down and got their dresses. And I tell you, it was because it just got in Friday morning, and we were married Monday evening and went to Cook's Forest for our short honeymoon. It was only till Friday, I think. Came back, and my wife Arlene said, well, I want to go back with you. I said, I'm sure we're probably going to be on alert. And sure enough, she didn't come back. And sure enough, in Chicago, just changed trains down to Fort Worth, I think it was. They told us, there was one guy there, he said, boy, I got a telegram, cutting short my furlough, because I think the ones in New York got a little longer furlough. And I didn't have any telegram. And there was one master sergeant there, he said, it's no joke, son. He says, I'm in division headquarters, and I got the same telegram. So we went back, and sure enough, I got in. It took Fort Camp Barkley about, it had to be about 3 in the morning, and there were guys sitting around where boxes were already packed. They had their rifles, So sure enough, no time at all, we were heading for Camp Shanks, New York, the POE, and then on the boat, I was on the Empress of Australia. It was a former German liner, and the British took it over after World War I. It was part of their payment, I guess. And it was a pretty big liner, and I was happy for that because I had a tendency, I could get seasick at times, but not on that ship. It was an uneventful crossing as far as I was concerned. Except that with being a British boat, we had to eat their food, if you can call it that. I mean, it was awful. I had bought I think I got 24 Fifth Avenue candy bars before we left, and that's what I lived on practically. And we were down on E deck, and even though it was October, it was cold up at topside, but it sure was hot down below. But anyway, we hit Liverpool and ended up at, I can't even remember now, Twining, I think. But anyway, got new rifle. We had new rifles, so we had to zero them in, and it was uneven. I got into London twice on a 48-hour pass. Had a good time. Went to the one burlesque house, and then went to the I think it was the Strand or something, and they had to play Arsenic and Old Lace, and I was amazed that these people spoke like Americans, not like the English. But it was a good experience. And then we went over on the LST to, I think it was Le Havre. We had trouble with our propeller or something, I guess, and we sat out in the harbor for about 3 days, I think it was, something like that, and so that wasn't any fun sitting right out there. But then we joined up and went across France. And the main thing I remember is Herlesheim, of course, because that's where I was wounded. I remember Steinwall Woods, where we were to help out C Company, but there was no use, and so we pulled back and moved over to the area of Herlesheim on the Zorn River, I believe it was. We were on the West Bank, I think it was. But anyway, I think it was the night of or early morning of the 18th, I believe it was, where we were supposed to go in and try and get those poor guys out of Hurlesheim. Pardon me. And they called that off too, even though in the history book I said that we went in there, but we didn't. We were ready to go, but our company, but we didn't go in. So then we moved across back to our company. B company was on the extreme end, facing toward Hurlesheim, and it was on the 19th of January, and it was a quiet day, more or less. And then we got the word our squad was right on the end, and they told Grebel to go up and watch that bridge up further up, to if they start attacking, to call in artillery fire to blow the bridge. Well, the rest of the squad went across the bridge onto the German side, and I stayed on the other side just to keep an eye on what might be coming on our side. And sure enough, I look up and here comes some tanks and infantry all over the place. So I called Grebel. I said, "You don't have to blow the bridge, Bob. Let's get out of here." And so we pulled back to our position, which was a little ditch, a little swamp in the bottom there. And we didn't have foxholes, but we were ready to. We had some cover. And all of a sudden, this one, I think it was an engineering battalion, 119th Engineer Battalion. They had like an anti-tank gun, more or less. And they start firing on the tanks, which gave us a little time to settle in there. And they got knocked out, and the tanks came. So we said, "Let's get out of here. Let's go down to the other positions there along the line." And then the word was at one time was to hold all costs. Now I don't know who gave that command, but it wasn't going to be hold all costs there. We were told to get to the woods then, which is behind us, and then the tanks can't get you anyway, and hold there. And so we took off across the field, and we weren't too bunched up, as I recall. And all of a sudden, I was blowing up in the air. I mean, they say the one you don't hear is the one that gets you, and that I didn't hear it. It was probably a tank cannon, an 88, I suppose. But I was blowing up and came down on my back, and I was bleeding in the eye, and my left leg, which is artificial now, the ankle, the foot just kept falling back and forth when I moved, and I was hitting the arm, the thigh. And a couple of guys stopped, and I said, "Get going," because they were machine gunning us too, besides firing the tanks. And so they took off. I says, I felt I had it. I thought I was gone. Well, I tried to sit up a bit, and then I got hit with the ricochet from a machine gun up here and in the back. So I decided, that's it. I'm going to lay here, see what happens. Well, night came, because it was a late afternoon attack, and it started to snow. And I'm laying out there, and all of a sudden I hear a tank coming. It was dark, of course. And I said, "Geez, what do I do? If I yell, they might run over me, I didn't know what to do. And I'm sure it was Germans, because they had taken over that position there. So I just laid there, and the tank came pretty close, as I recall. But I was okay. So I remember jumping over a little ditch when I was running before. So I pushed myself out with my helmet on my back and into the ditch, because I didn't want to get run over again. So that was Friday. It was Saturday morning, and I just laid there. There was nothing I could do, really. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where the Germans were. Figured the Americans were in the tree area. So it started to snow some more, so I wrapped my scarf. I had a scarf over my face to shield that. And I put a cigarette case, like a little one of those plastic ones. I had that as a tourniquet. Well, I stayed there all night, and Sunday morning on the 21st, I started heard some Germans jabbering away. I couldn't speak German, but I heard them jabbering. And I just laid there, didn't know what to do, because I understand we were against some SS people. So all of a sudden, the scarf was ripped off my face, and there was a Luger pointing at me, and I pointed to my foot that I was wounded. I said I was wounded, and so they just carried me back to a little aid station there out. It was outside, but they took my cigarettes and my pipe that I had, and left I had a wallet, but there wasn't anything in it anyway, and had a little folder of pictures. They didn't take that. And they looked at them, they bandaged it up a little, and then put me in an ambulance, and we crossed back over the river, and sure enough, an Allied plane started strafing us. I don't know if it was American or what, but the Germans all bailed out. See, the Germans were accused of using their Red Cross ambulances for good soldiers, you know, not wounded. And they weren't wounded, I'm sure of that, because they sure got out of that ambulance in a hurry, but left me in there. Well, thank God the guy missed us. And they took me to a big field hospital, which was, I suppose, like a MASH unit now, what they call nowadays, just a bunch of operating tables. And put me on the table. And I still had my clothes on, but they had taken the thing off there. And they said, you'll have to, there was an English-speaking guy, the doctor there, and he said, we'll have to amputate the gangrene is starting to set in. And it's pretty well shattered. So I said, can I have a second opinion? And he got another doctor to look at me. And he said, yeah, it has to come off. Below the knee, above the ankle. So I said, well, do you have ether or anything? Because I had heard they didn't have anything. No, he said, you'll be put under. And I was. And when I woke up, I still didn't have any pain then. And they said, we'll take you to a hospital. I'm not sure where this one was, but it was an old schoolhouse. And they took me up there and kept an eye on me. A fellow came around who spoke English, and he asked me where I was from. I said, well, I can only tell you my name, rank, and serial number. He said, well, we know what outfit you were in. Oh, I said, you do? Yes. You were in the 12th Armored Division. We know that. And I had no patches on me or anything like that. He said, well, where do you live? I said, well, Cleveland, Ohio. Oh, yes. He said, that's somewhere near where Put-in Bay, where Commodore Perry had a battle. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, well, we'll notify the Red Cross, but they never did. And I think it was, at that time, I think my arm was, I have wounds right through there, acting up a little bit. They patched it up a little bit, and about 10 days, one evening, it was dark already, they put me on a stretcher and took me down to this train station. And there I am, laying on a stretcher, on the floor, a bunch of Germans in and out. They all had, when they went home on leave, they took their rifles with them and everything else. And they were going, getting on trains and all that, you know. And finally, a couple of guys came by, picked me up, took me to the train that was there, and put me in the mail car. And because I knew it was a mail car, I saw them sorting mail. But and I slept off and on. And the next morning, train stopped. A couple of guys got me off and put me on a horse-drawn sled. And up we go up a little valley like. And I know now it was in the Black Forest area, and in the town of Bad Griesbach. That was a health resort town. And there I see it was a hotel really converted to a hospital. And well, boy, this is pretty fancy. So they took me in, and here was a German hospital. And there weren't any Americans there, or anybody there, except Germans. And I didn't know what the heck it was all about. I think it was probably my name, you know, Lipstreuer, as they call it. I don't know if they made a mistake, I guess. But anyway, they took me in, took off my clothes, and put me in a shower on a stretcher, and rebandaged my stump, and took me up to a room. Because at the time, I wasn't sure what this place was, but most of the fellows were getting ready to go back into action because they were moving around quite well. And they put me in a room with 4 Germans, and they can't speak English, and I can't speak German. But there was an English-speaking doctor who spent about, 4 years in London, he told me. And he told me where we were and everything, and So I'm here. I probably get better treatment here than in a prison hospital. And I ate whatever they did, and they didn't have a lot. I think the thing I remember most was they had the same menu every week. And Tuesday night was Limburger cheese night. And I don't know if you guys ever smell that stuff, but 5 people in a room with all closed up, for the night. And I couldn't eat it. And they had potatoes, boiled potatoes, and some ersatz butter, I guess it was. And so I traded with one of the guys, and I got his butter and his bread, and he could have my Limburger cheese. But mostly there wasn't hardly any meat, and just potatoes and bread that was like sawdust, and the coffee was quite weak. And I think they had some sugar, but I'm not sure. But it was all right, though. I was treated well. They told me one day they came in and said, "We've got news for you. We've got an Allied soldier, wounded soldier, and he's over in the other part of the building, and we're going to move you in there with him. It'll just be the 2 of you." Oh, gee, that was great, So they take me over there, and here he's a French Algerian. He spoke French, so there I was. So between us, though, we sort of worked out some sort of language, as I recall. And he could speak French, of course, and they had French nurses, or sisters they were, and so he could get the lowdown on what was going on. And then I don't know what happened. Oh, yeah, then the next thing happened. I was getting along pretty good. I was on crutches. Just after lunch one day, I got a heck of a stomach ache, and I vomited. So they called in the doctor. We had Luftwaffe doctors at the time, and they were very good. And he said, "Well, you got appendicitis. We think you got appendicitis." So, well, okay. And they took out my appendix, free of charge, mind you. And so that laid me up. In those days, they didn't, get you up the first day or anything. You stayed in bed. So that I sort of regressed a bit. But then I recall the next thing was they brought in a little German barber, because I hadn't been shaved. I hadn't had a haircut for at least a month or so. So he gave me a haircut, and he had a straight razor to shave me. And I recall he asked me, he said, "You know why you're fighting this war?" I said, "Well, yeah, I know why I'm fighting the war," because he could speak pretty good English. I said, we're fighting to get rid of Hitler and all the things he stands for. No, you're fighting for the Jews. That's what he told me, yeah. Well, I wasn't going to argue. not with the straight razor anyway. So anyway, they moved the 2 of us into the main building again with, I think they had 3 other Germans in there. And by that time there was another fellow, a German soldier, who he could speak some English, and we got to be friendly, and he showed me a picture of his family and his house, and I showed him my pictures, and I had a picture in there of me standing on a Pontiac, a 39 Pontiac, I believe. It was my car. I'm standing there with my foot on the run board in uniform, and they couldn't believe that was my car. I said, "Yeah, that's my car," and I showed him pictures of my wife and everything. So he kept me informed, because they had the radio going all day. It was out in the hall someplace. All day long, it was either marching music or news broadcast. And then he could come in and tell me that things weren't looking too good for the Germans. And see, when I got hit, that was that Operation Norwind, as the Germans called it. That was another bulge, and it didn't get a lot of publicity apparently, but that was the. And so when I got hit, things weren't going so great. So I didn't really know what was going on, but he told me that the Germans were falling back. In fact, one day they brought in, they were coming up the road, because we were in the valley, were a bunch of Russian prisoners. They were moving them because of the Allies attacking closer to them. And boy, did they get razzed and yelled at and everything, but they were a sorry-looking bunch. But anyway, the sisters were keeping my French buddy well informed. And they said the Allies are moving up, and they're going to declare this little town an open city. Whoop, we lost it. They're going to stop, right?
Yeah, sorry about that. Here we go. Sure you get it.
I guess I'm moving too much.
No, you're shoot. I'm trying to address you here. Alright, I think that's...
So, they told us the Allies were coming and they're going to declare an open city. They took the uniforms away from all the, because they had the uniforms right in their room. And they took the uniforms away. And we had some SS boys in there, and they were a little worried. Well, they said, don't worry, nothing's going to happen. Well, up comes the troops, tanks, American tanks they were. And I thought, hey, great. And then I noticed they all were wearing French helmets. Then I noticed they were all black. Here they were the French Moroccan troops. And oh boy, I still can't talk to anybody, you know. But this French Algerian kid, he ran down to meet him. And a couple of them came up in the room. They had a couple of bottles of schnapps, I recall, and a box of cigars. See, they're allowed to loot. And but they didn't do any harm to the Germans, but all day long they were passing through. And I saw bicycles, I saw donkeys, I saw horses, I saw an old Volkswagen. I don't know where they got the gas. It was running along. I guess they could take anything they could and put their stuff on it and move out. But I looked out the window. There was a guy carrying 2 chickens. It was funny. I mean, but they gave me the schnapps and cigars and said somebody be back up. And here they had American ambulance drivers. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. They were a lot of conscientious objectors. They didn't want to fight, but they went over and became ambulance drivers for the French. And so there was 2 of them there, and they said, well, we're going to take you out tomorrow morning up to another town, and then we'll get you we'll get you back into Allied hands. So that next morning they came up, and I was on crutches, but they put me on a stretcher then, and took me up to a town called Freiburg. It's north, would be northeast of Bad Griesbach. It's in the mountains, and we drove up there, and they took me into the hospital, into the I guess it was a waiting room, reception room, and just laid me down on 2 horse bucks, you know, the wooden buck, and just laid me down on a stretcher and left me alone. Well, here they were still fighting in Freiburg. There was still battle with another part of the town, but they kept bringing in the wounded, and the operating rooms were right off there, I guess, because I'd see the doctor come out all bloody, you know, his apron and that. So I just laid there, and finally it was, I guess, a French Moroccan came over and said, did you eat? I said, no, I haven't done anything. So he carried me on his back down to the cafeteria in the basement. Nobody else was down at the time, just the cooks, and got me food, brought me back up. I must have got somebody of importance to come over and see me, and so they put me in a room, a private room upstairs, and I could look out the window and see the flashes from the gunfire. But I had a nice sleep though, and next morning they brought me down and said, we're going to take you to near Strasbourg, across the Rhine, and they put me sitting up, and these ambulances were just a hard seat like, and nothing really to hold on to but the seat or the bench. So anyway, we went down that mountain, and I thought, boy, we're going to get it. We're going to go over this mountain, sure as heck. And I thought, what a way to go, you know. But crossed the river, got into Strasbourg, stops. The driver and his assistant get out. Well, I don't know what's going on, but pretty soon the back door opened, and they bring in some glasses of beer, because there was a couple of Frenchmen on it too, with me. So we had a beer. And they took me to this old, I don't know what it was, an old or house like, and took me in there. They had an English nurse, I think, or a receptionist, but left me on the stretcher, and these were French guys who were captured in 1940, and they were really, sad shape. I mean, they were in really sad shape. But there was I think it was a Canadian pilot was laying across from me, and he found out, hey, I'm American. He said, oh, yeah, great. And he said, I'm getting out of this place because they're going to fly me out because we got an airfield nearby. And a couple of guys came over, his buddies, to take him over to the airfield. And he said, have they notified anybody? I said, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. They said, well, we'll call the 157th General, I think, Hospital in Nancy. We'll call them. Tell them you're here. I said, great. And sure enough, I think it was that night, or late at night, I was asleep. A couple of guys came in, GIs, and said, are you there with GIs? I said, yeah. Well, we're going to get you out of here right now. We know what a hellhole this is. So I said, okay, great. And nothing happened. I fell back to sleep. So they came in the morning. I said, well, was I dreaming, or were you guys in here talking to me? He said, no, you weren't dreaming, but they wouldn't let us take you out until this morning. And I think it was a Sunday morning, as a matter of fact. And they told me, so, well, hey, it could be a holiday or whatever. If we find out somebody's down at this place, we get them out of there. Doesn't happen very often. So they took me to the 157th in Nancy, and it was an old French barracks, big barracks, a stone barrack, and it was put in a ward with the other guys. And, at the time when I got wounded, I was bleeding in the eye, and I ripped my glasses off. And it turned out, I guess I just got a cut from when the concussion, hit my eye. But I had no glasses. I couldn't see too well. But there was a guy from an infantry outfit who was there across from me, and he said, I said, let me try on your glasses, would you? He said, sure. And I could see pretty good. I said, you don't happen to have another pair, do you? He said, yeah, I got GI glasses, I said, well, could I have them? I'll send them back to you. I said, take them, So I had a pair of glasses. I could go to the movie, see a movie or so. And that's when VE Day came, May 8th. And man, the town went wild. And we had a lieutenant nurse from Columbus, Ohio. And they wouldn't let us out. Wouldn't let me out anyway. And someone couldn't get out. And she said, well, tell you what, boys, I got a bottle of gin, and we'll have a little party ourselves. Because she said, I'm stuck here too. So we had a nice time that night. And then they, when I got to Nancy, they did send a telegram to my folks. And then I sent, because that's the name they had on the thing, and then I sent they sent a postcard to my wife, and just said that I was convalescing from wounds received in action. And because at that time, my folks didn't know if I was, and my wife didn't know if I was killed in action or missing in action. They said, the report said missing in action, but they said, that just means missing in action, don't know where he's at. And my dad actually wrote a letter to the commanding officer of the regiment I was in, or battalion, and he got a letter back from him saying that he's still missing. We cannot say that he was killed. He's still missing, and we're doing our best to locate him. And if we hear anything, you'll know about it. So I thought that was pretty nice. But see, some of my letters came back with KIA on it, killed in action. That's some said MI, and some KIA. But anyway, they took after VE Day. They said, well, we're going to take you by train to Paris, the first general hospital there, and then from then on you'll be processed back to America. And they put me on a train, and they gave me, I had no uniform. I had a German lounge outfit, like it was a blue and white stripe. Looked actually like one of the concentration camps outfit. That's what it looked like, that same outfit, type of outfit. But anyway, they gave me a uniform because they were going to have me sitting up, and they gave me shoes. And I said, well, I don't need them. I said, I just need one. I said, I'm not going to carry the other thing around, because it was one of those high top ones. And so they put me on the train. This train, it wasn't far. If you look on the map from Strasbourg to, from Nancy to Paris. Not very far, but it took all day to get there the way they traveled. They stopped every farmhouse, I swear. But we went by bus then to which was actually the University of Paris. They turned it into a hospital. And big ward, a lot of beds. And I had a guy on each side of me there that he said, we're going into Paris. How about for the night, or for the evening anyway, on a pass. And you want to come? He said, we'll take care of you. I said, okay, sure. Well, they wouldn't let me go, even though the guys argued, hey, we'll take care of the guy. No, because I was on crutches. So I didn't get to go into Paris, just through it. I remember I was feeling pretty down in the dumps, I didn't know what it was like to, I never saw an artificial limb really, and I don't think I did anyway. And anyway, in come a couple of guys that one day, running down the hall, running down the ward. And I saw them, and they had both amputees. They stayed in the army to do such a thing, to show what you can still do with an artificial limb. And boy, that got my spirits up real well. I'll tell you that, right then and there. I thought, if they can do it, I can do it. They were showing me they could dance and everything. So they came, and then they asked if they're going to, I guess they took any prisoners, wounded prisoners like that, you could be flown back to the States. And they take you over what they call the Aerovac. And there, they give you the last chance if you want to go by boat or plane. And I said, no, fastest way over, fastest way back. And I remember a little French gal come through and looking for cigarettes. And I think I had a pack of Lucky Strikes or something like that. And I got a nice bracelet for him. I had no money. I didn't earn much anyway as a private first class, and half allowance went home to the wife. So, and then on payday, I think I got about equivalent of $15, and I'd lose that playing poker. I'd buy a bottle of schnapps or a Calvados, and then lose the rest of it. So I didn't have any money at all. They said, you want to get rid of it, exchange your money. Well, I had some old German money that wasn't worth, the soldiers gave it to me in the hospital, it wasn't worth anything, 1,000,000 francs or something. So, marks, but I had very little money. And we got on the plane and left Paris, I think about 6 o'clock at night. And what they do, they fly from Paris to the Azores, change pilot and crew, and they change the flight nurses. Flight nurse, I think there was one. And then they fly to Newfoundland, and then to Mitchell Field, Long Island. And I asked the one pilot, well, why did he, this. I said, why don't you go to Bermuda or something? Well, he said, up there, believe it or not, Newfoundland, it's almost always good weather as far as being clear to land. And I said, okay, that makes sense. But we got to Azores, and they gave us a box lunch, like it was nighttime, but they gave us something to eat. We stayed on the plane. I think there were 16 of us, all in stretchers. It was a C-54 four-engine plane. And we had a flight surgeon from Cleveland, Ohio on. And he was going back home, and he was flying on there. So we had a good surgeon even if we needed it. But they had to take one fellow off because he got in bad shape. And the kid laying above me, he was a B-25, I think, pilot. He was wounded, B-26. He had lost both legs above the knee. And a young guy, I swear, I was 22 at the time, and I think he was about 20, 19 maybe. But anyway, we flew to Newfoundland, and where they land, it's about like that, and they come in this way, and he has to, if he doesn't go back into the water, he has to make a sharp turn with the brakes on and swing around. And he said, sometimes we go in, but don't worry about it. They were all, airline pilots, ex-airline pilots. That's what they were. And they said, we never lost anybody anyway, even if we go in the water. We don't worry about it. Because they let us, we couldn't smoke, something about the gas tanks. We couldn't smoke back in the cabin, but you go up where they had a couple of bunks by the crew, where the crew could lounge. And I went up in there to get a smoke, and I was smoking at the time, and I saw the captain. Well, it was on autopilot. He had one foot by the controls, and I'll just hold it. And he was playing cribbage or something with his co-pilot. So I said, well, we're in good shape here. But anyway, we left Newfoundland and flew into Mitchell Field, Long Island. And they said, if you want to get out and look out, you can sit on the bunch of life preservers sitting in the corner there. And he said, we'll be flying over Boston, and you can see the USA. I said, okay. So I sat there. But it got pretty bumpy, so I got back in my bunk there and landed in Mitchell Field. They let us call home, one call. And that's after I found out where I was going. They said you could go to Valley Forge, PA, that would be the closest, or Walter Reed, or Battle Creek, Michigan. They're all amputee centers, really. That's what they do the most of. And I said, okay, I'll go to Battle Creek. So I flew on a C-47, I think. We landed in Cleveland. And the Red Cross gals came on to give us something to eat. And I talked to one of them. I said, well, do me a favor, will you? Here's my wife's phone number. Give her a call and tell her I'll be in Battle Creek this afternoon. Oh, we can't do that. I said, why not? Well, you know, we can't tell where everybody is. I said, well, hey, nobody cares where I am except my family. I said, I'm here, I'm wounded, I'm going to the hospital. Well, all right, I think that'll be all right. And they did. They called in. But I got to Battle Creek and got into the hospital. And the folks came up with my wife. They drove up. My dad had a C coupon, which gave him enough gas to get up there and back, you know. So they drove up and surprised me. And they stayed overnight and then went back. And I was in a nice ward, about 5 or 6 guys in there. All of us amputees. Some above the knee, some below. But we had a good time. The wife brought us a couple of beers up, sneaked some up. And then they had to re-amputate because I was amputated right there. And they told us that the best is about 7 inches below the knee. That's the best type of stump to have. Because otherwise, if you have it too long, it keeps wearing on you and you got to amputate again. I said, okay, you guys know what you're doing. And they were both, that's all they did, I think, was amputations. And I remember them telling me that one of the guys he was operating on before me, and he had a spinal. And he was telling a story about one of his fellows he knew. He was in Hawaii at the time, coming back, and they missed and paralyzed him. So when we got down to where we're going to get the anesthetist, I says, what if I don't want a spinal? Because that's all they gave on below the waist. So you get one anyway. Okay. So anyway, it came out all right, but I had to, they give you sodium. They give you sodium pills for a while to make sure you fight off infection, perhaps. Well, I vomited that, so they gave me penicillin then. But that was every 4 hours I had to have a shot in the buttocks. And that was a bad thing about it, but the good thing was I was feeling better that way, I thought anyway. But I can recall Dinah Shore came up to our ward, and when she was in the hallway, they wheeled the beds out there. And she sang to us, and I thought it was very nice. She held my hand. I don't think she remembered that, but because they didn't want to send us down to the auditorium, they kept us up there because we were still. Well, I think I still had a cast on my stump, and and then I got adhesions. I started vomiting, and so they took me down to X-ray, and you got an adhesion right down in this area here. It was from my appendix operation from the Germans. So they said, we're going to pump you out. I said, you put something up your nose and down, and oh my God. And he said, well, you want to stop rest? No, don't do that. So I was on that thing for 36 hours, I think. But they cleared it up. I was all right then. But I was, and I got to, then we got our, well, even before we got our new legs, we were allowed to go home if you could. And so every weekend I took a train to Detroit from Battle Creek, and a bus into the train depot, and then I'd take a cab to the bus depot then in Detroit. And I never had to pay, of course. I mean, here I am with the leg off, and all that. Anybody in the cab, they took up the bill. They didn't. In fact, even in the bars, you couldn't buy a drink. And in Detroit, anyway, because Battle Creek, they seen too many of them. But in Detroit, you couldn't buy a drink. But then I'd go to the MP station, let me sit in by the MP station, and you're supposed to wear a tie and all that. Well, I didn't have to wear a tie. I didn't have to wear a cap. They didn't care, And then when the bus was ready, they'd put me on first. And I always sat behind the driver. I liked it up there. And we go home, I get home, and the wife would meet me at the bus station on Saturday morning, drove all Friday night. And then I'd go home on the reverse on Sunday night, about midnight, I think. And that would get me, well, it didn't matter. They said, you got to be back by 8 o'clock Monday morning. I said, well, what are you going to do with me if I don't get back? Well, we'll restrict you to the barracks or something. Okay, well, I never got in on time, but I got in, 9, 10 o'clock, didn't matter. And I can remember one time my aunt and uncle, they had friends in Detroit, and they'd always rent a little cottage on the lake. And they came down to get me Thursday. And they wouldn't let me go. I said, I'm going. Pass or no pass, I'm going. So I went. And they took me up to the cottage then, and we did a little fishing, and went back Friday to Cleveland. So nothing ever happened to that. I mean, they didn't do anything drastic or anything like that. So then we got our legs, had to go to PT class and all that stuff, and learn how to walk, and which wasn't hard. I mean, with the below the knee, I was walking with a cane the second day, and then didn't need that even. But my wife came up to visit me once, I think it was. They transferred us out to Fort Custer once we got walking, which was an old barrack type barracks, and it converted to a field hospital, and so we had more freedom out there. But the time came then. Let's see, what was it? They gave us. You had to take 30 days leave before you could be discharged. So I went home, and I had my car yet, and wife and I went up to Niagara Falls, and then up to New England area, and then went back home, back there, and then I was up there. I drove back. Yeah, I drove back myself. I took the car up there because it was getting time to be discharged, and I wanted to be able to drive back. And so we got, it was on Thanksgiving Eve, it would have been. We were discharged, and when they came to see what medals you get, he said, well, I can't give you the Purple Heart. I said, why not? Well, it's not on your record that you were wounded. I said, I said, it's not going to be on my discharge that I was wounded? No, it's not on your record. I said, okay, all right. Just get me out of here anyway. But anyway, 3 other fellows from the Cleveland area. In fact, one was from my same high school. I met him up there. He was a tanker, but he lost his leg. So we drove back on Thanksgiving Eve by old Route 20, I guess it was. We stopped to get something to eat in a little restaurant, and we were stiffer as a board, I mean, from sitting in the car like that. And we wandered in. I think we were using canes to get in even. And we sat down, and the waitress came over and said, that gentleman over there would like to buy you all your dinner. Great, we all had steak. I mean, what the heck. But anyway, we got in. We got in into Euclid. Well, no, I dropped people, some up in one in Garfield Heights, one in Cleveland Heights, and then the two of us drove into Euclid. And he was a Slovenian fellow, and in fact, he ended up mayor of Euclid. But he said, let's go over to Ludwig's barn here on this street. I knew where it was. He said, there'll be somebody I know there. It was about midnight, I guess. I said, okay. So we went over there, and oh boy, I was lucky I didn't dare drive home. I drove to my folks' house, and I spent the night there. But that was a fine ending to getting out of the Army, I thought. And so I wanted to get into Case School of Applied Science, it was called then, but I couldn't get in. So and I couldn't. There was Fenn College in Cleveland, and I couldn't get in then. It was for January, I think it was. So I said, well, okay, I'll go back to work where I was, and I was a supervisor in a plant there, an electrical plant. So I said, well, I don't want to do that anymore. I said, I want to be a draftsman for a while. Okay, because I said, I can draw. I just had a little in high school. So anyway, I applied then to Fenn College, College of Engineering, and for the September class of starting in 46. Yeah, 46. And I didn't. Fenn College had what they called this co-op, where you'd work 3 months, go to school 3 months. And I wanted to get out as soon as I could. So I said, I'll forget the work. Of course, I got a little compensation for having my leg off. And the wife was working. So I took their, I got out in 2.5 years, I think. I went all summer. I got 1 month off. I went all summer long. And graduated in 49. 46, 49, yeah. And I had got a degree and then got a job. From then on, it was easy going. I mean, the government gives you, when you need a new leg, you got a new leg. And we just led a normal life. I was on a bowling team, and they had an outfit in Cleveland called Possibilities Unlimited, which were amputees from before the war, really, and they were a great group of people, and they took us in, and we became members, and they were a lot of help, and they had a party every year, and then one of the big catering companies in Cleveland said, we're going to sponsor a Possibilities Unlimited ball team, fast pitch softball, with fast pitch though. And all I want to try, let's try out. So, hey, we put the one-arm guys in the outfield. The one-arm guys in the outfield, and the one-legged guys in the infield. And we beat some of the good teams. We're Class B, fast pitch, and we beat some of the good teams. We had a heck of a pitcher. He had an arm off. Man, did he have a fastball. I played second base, and I got more hits, more balls than anybody else. These guys, the right-handers, would hit them down my way all the time. But we had the coach who drove one of the catering trucks, and we always had beer at the game, So that lasted for a couple of years. I don't know why we broke up, but and then as I said, I belonged to the Legion. I joined at 40 when I was still in the Army. 45, I think it was, and I became athletic officer. We had a bowling team. I bowled. We had it was still fast pitch too. We had a softball team in Euclid. I managed, but I did pitch once in a while too. And then we got later on. I joined a blooper ball pitch for a tavern, and we won 3 years in a row the championship. And I caught for that because it has to hit the plate. That's how the ball. I mean, to be a striker, call a striker, it has to hit the plate. So there was really nothing to catch it really. Just pick up the ball and throw it back. But it came across there. But then that broke up. But then I went to work for Honeywell Incorporated as a inside sales engineer, and Lasted 31 and a half years there. I stayed in Cleveland. Then I was told I had three boys. Kenneth was first in '53, and then Jeff, who 55, I think, and then Greg in '57. And they all turned out to be great boys. In fact, Jeff and Greg, the youngest, is here with me today, and son Ken lives up in Kingwood, north of the airport. And Jeff came down with his wife, and he's just been promoted to lieutenant colonel in the Army, and with his wife and little grandson. I have 5 grandchildren, and the oldest being Kenzie, who lives in Kingwood. We came down here in May for her graduation. But as I say, I went to work then when Honeywell said, well, we're going to consolidate a lot of stuff, and you can be transferred to Baltimore, or you can retire. And they had a retirement plan. You could retire early and still get, pretty good pension. So I scouted around. I always had a fellow who owned a small thermocouple manufacturing company, which Honeywell did that plus instruments, and because I was in the industrial section. And he always kidded me when he saw me. He said, hey, when are you going to come to work for me? And I always said, well, you can't afford me, Fred, But when they gave me this option of retiring, I contacted him and said, hey, yeah. He said, well, I'm not the boss anymore. My son is, but let's have lunch. And he made me a good offer. And he was surprised, of course, that I said, I'll work for you. And that was the best thing I ever did, really. I had 31 and a half years with Honeywell. I was, what was I, about 58 or so, something like that. But anyway, it was so different. With Honeywell, you had meetings all the time, literature you couldn't keep up on, and all that stuff, and sales quotas, sell. And when I went with Cleveland Electric Laboratories, I was going to be an outside salesman, and he said, no pushing, no meeting. Well, once in a while a meeting, but no literature, no nothing really. But I had a lot of customers, even being inside sales, who I talked to many years. So I knew who they were. So I just went out and I got 110 new customers for my new company. Not some of them were small, some were good, big, but I just went around to all the old people that I knew and said, hey, I'm here, and actually it was easy because our thermocouple prices were great. When I told them the prices, I didn't have to say any more. Oh, gee, here, take an order right now, So I enjoyed it. I retired then in 1988 from Honeywell. From Cleveland Electric Labs. They didn't force me to retire or anything. I was 65, I think, and I said, no, I enjoy it, but I've had enough. I want to it wasn't hard. You had to make your sales call report and that, but so I retired and still going. I don't bowl anymore, and I still am. 50 years as a sergeant of the color guard and firing squad in the American Legion, Euclid Post 343. I was going to quit this year, but we only parade once or twice. We used to parade a lot, but not anymore, just on Memorial Day, and I ride in a car now. I can march a small march, but not long one, not a mile. But I said, okay, I'll stick it out. What we do is, besides parading, we handle funerals when we can, firing squad, and stand guard at the casket for a Legionnaire. And I can do that, but I've been in the Legion 54 years, and in the VFW, I was past commander in the Legion, past commander of the Disabled American Veterans twice. Now I'm their treasurer. But it's been a good life. I've been kept busy, and wife's been great. Boys have been great, never any trouble. And oh yes, I did have a daughter. That was a late one. That was my youngest. Greg was 9 years old, I think. At the time we had a daughter, Vicky, a hell kitten as they call her, And I think that was the greatest thing that ever happened because kept us young. she went to, school and all that. And then the wife says, well, I want her to go to this Andrews School for Girls out in Willoughby. My stepmother-in-law went there, and small school, about 10 in a class or so. I think that'd be best for her. I said, okay. And she said, I'll go to work even, because we won't need to be home. She said, I won't need to be home. Okay. And she went out there from 7th grade on, and 30 in a class. That's all. And I kept after her saying, why don't you become class president or something? She said, no, senior year. That's when I'll become class president. Don't worry, Dad. I'll make it. She had a lot of good friends there. And she did. And for the graduation, she was the class president. But she went to college then. She said, Dad, I said, well, why don't you go to Ohio State or Cleveland State? That was now Fenn was Cleveland State. No, I don't think I could stand a big college. So many people, 40, 50,000. I can't stand that. So she went around to a couple of schools, and she chose Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. In fact, she knew a couple of guys who went there, I guess. And I had earned enough money that I couldn't get her any student aid, but the head of the she took comm arts and I forget what the other. She took two courses, two majors, and I talked with her head advisor and said, "Oh, we'll get her a job. We'll get her a job working on the stage and that, because that's what she wanted to do. She liked stage work. She did that at Andrews, and so she took off. She got into lighting and some sound, and when she graduated cum laude, and as I recall, then she went to work for Vincent Lighting. It was a small lighting outfit, and she met this fellow was the design man in Cincinnati office. And she said, "Boy, he was a nice guy, She never she never dated in high school, but at college she had one boyfriend one year and then got another boyfriend the next year like it. But she said, this guy is really nice. We think together. He's divorced because his wife wasn't athletic. He's athletic, and we just like to do things together." Oh, okay. So one Christmas he came up and he came to our house and said, "I'd like to ask for your daughter's hand." real great. His name was Glenn Goodwin, and my Jeff, the major, he was the major, then I started captain. He says, "You got my approval. Don't worry about it." And so anyway, they got engaged, and she was living up in Cleveland. He was living down in Cincinnati, and he'd come up and visit. And then he said, "Well, why don't we?" They weren't getting married yet. They were engaged, but he says, "Why don't you come down and live in?" You lived in Newport, Kentucky, and she said, "I've been down there. I wouldn't live in that apartment you have." He said, "I'll come down together. We'll find an apartment." And they found a nice one near Florence, Kentucky. And in fact, we went down to visit him a couple of times there, and it was really nice. And then they decided that they wanted to get married, and they got married up in our area. Had a nice church wedding and nice reception and everything. And they've been married now 3 years, I guess. But I she was my girl, after 3 boys. And then the funny thing happened, they were all set to, just before the wedding, the head man of Vincent Light, Paul Vincent, called him in and said, "I'm firing you, Glenn." And he was doing great, but they didn't get along. So Glenn says, "Okay, all right. Just give me my commissions that I got coming, and that's all right." And he told his folks not to worry. I'll do all right. Don't worry about it. And sure enough, he formed his own company, Glenn Goodwin Lighting Company in Kentucky there. They bought a house, worked out of his house, put an office. He's very handy. He rearranged the bedroom into an office and everything, and getting along great. In fact, I wanted them to come down, and they couldn't couldn't make it. All their businesses on weekends, weddings, bar mitzvahs, you name it, meetings. And he said, geez, we're busy Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. I think we're off Sundays, he said. So they just couldn't do it. They hire people, just, freelancers to help them out, but they couldn't make it. So we miss Vic, but we're going to, hopefully this rain will stop, so my 2 kids are out in Kingwood, will be in for the unit dinner tonight. And then one of the wives is coming in for the big banquet, and the wife and I and the boys. So, and we get along great with the B-66. In fact, when we went up to the hospitality room, around 4:30 yesterday, and the one gal there, so where's the rest of the boys? Because only Greg was with us. I said, hey, they'll be around. Okay, where's that guy, the captain, or the major now? I said, well, I didn't tell him that he's going to be lieutenant colonel, and he's actually, you don't get promoted right away, but you're on the list, and you got to wait your number. But in the personnel section, he's listed as lieutenant colonel, and they do that in case they see an opening for a lieutenant colonel. They can put him in as a promotable major, and they can give him the lieutenant colonel slot. So he says, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a lieutenant colonel. I said, are you getting paid as a lieutenant? No, I said, I'm not getting paid as a lieutenant. But anyway, we've had a good life. I had a good time in the Army, whether I lost a leg or not. I enjoyed the comradeship, mainly. And as I say, the boys are all been good. They're all married, and there's 5 grandchildren. So it's about all I can say, but I'm glad I joined the 12th Armored Junior Reunion.
Would you mind if I asked you just...
Sure, go ahead.
What was it like for you as an ASDP boy coming into Barclay?
Well, it wasn't that good because all the ranks were practically filled. I mean, the sergeant, the assistant squad leader would be a sergeant, and squad leader was a staff sergeant with a rocker on it. And boy, they were all there. They treat us all right, no problem that way. But the chance of be a sergeant, we had we had a pretty big guy, good-looking guy, well educated. He made. We needed a assistant squad leader. He made sergeant. He's about the only one I know who made a rank in the our ASTP group that came into the B company. I don't know how many. I think most all of us, we all made PFC in July of that year of '44. But I said, well, the only way we're going to make any rank is when we're overseas and somebody gets wounded. Well, I didn't last long enough because at Colmar, where they went after Herlisheim, Colmar Pocket they called it, we lost our one PFC who was lead PFC. He got killed, and our assistant squad leader got wounded bad enough to be sent back, and so did one of the other squad boys got sent back. But then you had a chance to make something, out of it. But that was the only bad part about it, I thought, because we were all trained. We all we had to go through rifle training again, part of it, but most of us were riflemen anyway, and so we had no problem that way.
Who were your buddies?
Well, I think Alton Hegvik, he was at Omaha for the convention. He was probably my best buddy. And Lloyd Moore. Those two were probably the best. But the whole squad was really buddy, I thought, too. But those were my 2 best ones. I pulled guard with them most of the time.
When you were telling about when you got shot,
and
you told those guys to, go ahead and get out of here.
Yeah.
You ever find out what happened to those guys?
They were all right. They were okay, yeah. Well, I wasn't sure who they were, though. Let me give you that. We didn't... Actually, our squad... except for those 2 and one, I think only one of the original squad. I think only one private first class, James Lepatka. I think he was the only one they killed. He was a wild one. We get into a town, he'd bust into a room. I'd say, "Hey, take it easy, man. You don't know if it's mine or what." And we went in. I was with him a lot of times, and we went in this one room. There was a machine gun pointing at us, but somebody had disconnected the lanyard that was going to blow us away. But Yeah, he was a wild one, but he's the only one who got killed that I know of. And when we first went to Louisville for the convention, Greville had the pictures of the guys, and most all of them were still there, I think. Greville got some, what was it he got? He got sick or something. He was sent back, but then he came back as a platoon sergeant then. And somebody else took over the squad. But yeah, most of them were intact.
What are your memories of what happened out at Steinwall?
Not much. As I said, we were sent. It was still dark. We were sent up to help out C Company because they were getting battered. We knew that, and we were laying along a little, like a little mound, like we were spread out along there, and then they start firing mortars at us, and one landed. Well, it's pretty, it was pretty soft at the time. It wasn't frozen that bad, but one shell landed real nearby. I got splattered with the dirt and that, and I was afraid to look ahead of me to see if the guy got hit, but nobody got hit from that mortar. So then it was still getting light, so they said, get out. But that's why C Company couldn't get out. They were just, I remember this one fellow I talked to in C Company, George Carpenter, I think it was. He said, you try and look up, and you couldn't. They blast you away, So then they all laid, like the ones that weren't dead, just laid there. And then the Germans came up and didn't kill anybody that wasn't just wounded. They didn't kill them, but they took them prisoner. And a lot of them weren't wounded. They just couldn't get up, couldn't run, couldn't do anything. So we were lucky. We were lucky at Steinwall. Yeah.
And then let's see. You said, when you were laying in the ditch, you said you were worried. You'd kind of heard there were SS troops.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we had heard that there were SS guys. I think they were. I was worried about getting killed, shot.
The guys that went ahead and got you, were they regular German troops? The guys that found you?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. But I was afraid, that, hey, if I did anything, they'd shoot me. I didn't know what I was going to do, really, honest. I figured, hey, I said my prayers and, I hope I get out of it somehow. But I think I was half out of my mind anyway, shocked or something probably. But that's why I didn't want to say. Well, in fact, one of the kids picked me up. I'm sure he wasn't SS, but he was a young kid. I bet you 16 years old maybe. And, well, the funny thing, I forgot about that. He showed up in the hospital in Bad Griesbach. He got wounded, and he found out I was there somehow, that they had an American there. And he come up and he said, you don't remember me? And I looked, I helped you? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was so funny. That was really funny. But I was lucky.
Wow, that's great. Oh, I can't think of anything else.
No.
Did you ever see any political prisoners while you were?
No. All I saw was the Russians walking through one time, and I said they were in bad shape. Of course, the Germans in Russia were in bad shape too, as far as that goes. So, but as I say, it was one thing, they were going to repatriate me, where they were going to exchange me for a German soldier. A general came in and told me that. That was early April, I think, because I was there for Easter. I think it was in April that time, and they were going to exchange me. But then when Roosevelt died, they told me Roosevelt died, and they said, who's going to be the president, Wendell Willkie? And I said, no, he's not the vice president, but I couldn't think of it. I didn't know Truman's name. I honestly didn't. I didn't know he was the vice president. I remember a few of the guys that thought were going to be vice presidents, but I said, I don't know, but it isn't. It's the vice president. That was a funny one. But
Woodrow Wilkie, is that what his name?
No, Willkie. Wendell Willkie, his name was. He was the Republican candidate, and they heard that name, but they would never have probably heard Harry Truman's name. And so I told him, I don't know. Vice president, that's all I know. But
all right, well, that's great.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I tried to get in. Well, Greville was after me.